Welcome back to Anonymous. Not everyone is happy about the budget, especially the capital gains changes.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Exactly. So the government announced that the government's intention to increase the inclusion rate on capital gains realized annually above $250,000 by individuals and on all capital gains realized by corporations and trusts. But who are the most angriest right now? Doctors. Why?
We understand why an increase in the inclusion rate on the capital gains tax is such a concern for doctors.
Well, you have to understand that doctors are small business owners, just like your accountant or an auto mechanic. And we use a structure like a lot of small businesses called incorporation. And when we're incorporated, the big reason that we have corporations is that we use that as a means to save for our retirement.
So now that we've heard from them, let's get into the meat and potatoes.
It can be problematic in the sense that you already are starting to see opposition mount against it. And rich people tend to have access to loud megaphones to make their voice heard in a way that poor people don't have. So it's natural that you hear more from one side, or the institutional voice is more on this side. But there is a concern that it turns into a fight a little bit like the fight on private corporations during the Bill Morneau era of 2017, where you have people who are sympathetic to the greater public, to the middle class, and even to people who are working hard, struggling to join it, where it feels a little unfair, like the single mother who is a doctor who uses her private corporation to invest for her pension, for example, or that is, so there are sympathetic people that might emerge that might make the sell of this more complicated than the government intends.
Ultimately, what I think is nobody really cares, though. I'm not going to be, not to be a jerk about it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't care. I just wonder if, you're a single mother doctor, you're still making a lot more than most other Canadians. Now, I could definitely be wrong about that, but I think Canadians as a whole don't really care about the single mother doctor not being able to put away more for her retirement. We think she's still going to be able to retire. But I think just based off the fact that they are indeed a doctor and probably making a significant amount of money, well above most other Canadians, I don't know if many other Canadians are actually going to take issue with that, are willing to raise the pitchforks for them, especially if they're the ones having this problem, when at the end of the day, they could probably find other ways, means to save for their retirement, when in fact, they have money to save for their retirement versus most Canadians who are pretty sure they're going to be working themselves into the grave. I'm not sure which is sadder, what I just said about working yourself into the grave, or not really being able to have sympathy for our doctors.
On budget day, I think I looked at it and I thought, well, this is probably bad policy, but good politics. Who doesn't like soaking the rich? I've kind of come around to the view that it's actually good policy, but bad politics. You're moving the tax system more towards neutrality. At 2/3 inclusion rate, you're basically equalizing the tax treatment of capital gains, dividends, and interest, and that's good policy in and of itself. The problem in policy terms, first of all, is if you only do that and you don't do anything else, if you don't do it as part of a broader tax reform, then you are kind of basically raising taxes at a time when that's the last signal the government should be sending.
I mean, to be honest, I'm in the camp of good politics, but likely bad policy. Much of what was just said, like the plus and the minuses, or being able to see the winners and the losers, it seems like this is a specific attack on a specific group kind of being screwed over here. And if you're, an aspiring entrepreneur, news like this may be a bit discouraging, especially when entrepreneurs do help the economy a great deal, providing jobs for people and services, opportunities, etc. Where I do think this is good politics is the fact that the people who aren't being affected, as I said previously, I think it's just such a wider array of people, especially as we have more and more immigrants who are becoming citizens as well. We have a lot of people who are just not doctors. Okay, maybe some of the immigrants could probably be doctors, but they aren't doctors.
It's always dangerous when we do political analysis to confuse noise for a large audience, and for sure the people who are affected by this command attention and the media in a way that the people who are not do not. Yes. I'm not convinced that people who are struggling to pay a mortgage on a first home, or who are trying to buy a first home or find an apartment, are going to have a lot of sympathy for cottage owners who worry that their $700,000 profit might be taxed more or closer to what their actual income is taxed.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at here. At the end of the day, I just don't think people really are going to care because there's just too many people who are struggling. There's too many bad things happening here for Canadians to look up and be like, hey, you're making an extra $250,000. I'm sorry you're getting taxed more. You're making, they're making 50K. So for them, it's kind of like, well, sucks to suck. We're all suffering here. You can suffer a little bit. You're still a doctor making egregious amount of money, or maybe not egregious amount of money, but a significant amount better than most.
I think the saving grace for the Liberals on this is that the Conservatives understand the perils of making this their choice battleground on this budget.
Yeah.
That they will be exposed as fighting for people. It's easy to write a story about the single mother who is using etc. for a pension. It's easy also to show that they are defending someone with a $2 million gain on a cottage on a nice lake in Ontario.
Yeah.
And then you look like you're fighting for people who actually have more than a home.
Yeah.
It may be bad politics, but I noticed that today the Quebec government announced that it would match the federal move and tax at the same level. So I'm guessing that the revenues are worth more than the bad optics in the eye of other governments.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think this is a terrible idea on the Liberals' side of things. They're looking to gain some support in the upcoming election. They could gain some ground that they've been losing consistently, I think, by going this way. Or at least this is one of the ways they could end up better for them rather than worse.
All I would say is that the same arguments could have been made about the small business tax changes, that they were basically, they were perfectly reasonable changes. They were basically just slightly limiting the ability of people to turn themselves into corporations for tax reasons. So you wouldn't have thought it would cause the government a great deal of problem, and I doubt that the average person was terribly sympathetic. But the ability of a very determined group that sees itself as victims and is sincerely convinced that it's been terribly treated, the ability of that government to make a lot of trouble for a government, of that group to make a lot of trouble for a government and occupy space that the government would like to be devoted to other questions, I think should not be discounted.
I mean, that'll be interesting for sure to see just how loud this, newly appearing minority group can be. Minority groups have had a big voice during the Liberals' reign, so I'm curious to see how this one would work out. Now, that being said, though, this is a new, very social age that we're living in, and yes, you can rally their chains and bang their drums, make, as much noise as they want, but in the ocean of other minority groups who are banging their drums and rattling their chains, well, this new group that lacks the sympathy of the majority of other Canadians, will they really be able to do the damage that they're trying to do to hurt the Liberal Party, to make them backtrack? And how would they even do that? Are they going to start firing the people to compensate for the losses? Are they going to, start shutting down and protesting? I don't really think so. Or what would be interesting is if a lot of them decide to pack up and potentially head down south, which is one way that I could really see them actually doing stuff. But I mean, if they haven't already packed up and left, it's probably because they have family here, their friends are here, their practice is here. So maybe packing up and just abandoning all of that isn't in the cards. Anyways, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this below. How much do you care about the doctors and their plight? Or anybody else who might be going through this sort of issue? Let me know down below, and look out for more.